Planet Dolan.
From the biography of an underage serial killer to writing about your murders and claiming they're fiction, we count 10 weird books written by serial killers. Number 10. Zeca Sakakibara Sato is the alias of an underage Japanese serial killer who killed 2 kids and mutilated 3 others in 1997. He was 14 when he was arrested for the murder of 11-year-old Jun Hase, whose severed head he placed before the entrance of a school in Kobe. He also confessed to the murder of 10-year-old Ayaka Yamashita after his arrest. In 2015, Sato's controversial autobiography Zeca was published. Sato reportedly sent copies of the book to his victims' families with personalized apologies. The families, however, believed the book would only prolong suffering and tried in vain to have the bestseller removed from stores. In the book, Sato admits to being a sexual deviant and claimed he only progressed to murdering people because killing house cats no longer thrilled him. He describes his crimes, including his love of dissecting humans, in considerable detail and leaves it unclear whether he feels any true remorse. Sato received royalty for sales of the book, which he claimed he would use to pay off the civil damages awarded to his victims' families. He was released back into society in 2005, but his true identity remains unknown. Number 9. The Strange Case of Dr. H.H. Holmes. Herman Mudgett, aka Dr. H.H. Holmes, was a trained doctor and one of the first serial killers in the U.S. He admitted to killing 27 people, but many believe the body count could be as high as 200. Holmes bought and renovated an entire city block, turning it into a hotel built for murder. Opening just before the 1893 World's Fair, the hotel contained numerous booby traps, the windowless rooms that could be locked from the outside, built-in gas jets, fake walls and padded rooms to muffle sound, and a person-sized insulation chamber in the basement. Holmes constantly changed workers during the hotel's construction so that he would be the only one who fully understood the building's design. Of course, Holmes was eventually caught and was sentenced to be hanged in 1896. His 3-volume book, The Strange Case of Dr. H.H. Holmes, was published shortly before his execution. The first volume, Holmes' Own Story, is an autobiography and describes Holmes' childhood and hardships. Although I'm not sure you can really claim to have experience in hardships if you have enough money to buy a whole street and build an elaborate hotel. Number 8. Final Truth. Written in collaboration with journalist Wilton Earl, Donald Gaskins' Final Truth, the autobiography of a serial killer, presents the serial killer's life history and describes his heinous crimes. Best known as Pee Wee Gaskins, Donald Gaskins was a prolific American serial killer with a serious case of short man syndrome. He confessed to killing 13 people by drowning, stabbing, or shooting them, and then concealing their corpses in backwoods graves near South Carolina. Gaskins was found guilty of 8 murders, but in his autobiography he claims to have killed as many as 110. Among his many victims was also a toddler whom he raped before murdering. Disturbingly, he also wrote that he had a special mind that gave him permission to kill. Number 7. Killer, A Journal of Murder was written by Thomas E. Gaddis and James Long and contains mass murderer Carl Panzram's personal journal and letters. The texts were written as far back as 1928, but it took another 40 years for them to be published. While incarcerated for burglary at Washington Asylum, Carl Panzram met a prison guard named Henry Lesser who pitied him and advised him to write, resulting in a wealth of letters and manuscripts. In these letters, Carl Panzram gleefully recounted the details of his murders, his thousands of robberies and arsons, and the way he sodomized over 1,000 men in 30 countries and out at sea. In another harrowing letter, Panzram writes about buying a yacht with stolen money and hiring sailors, whom he got drunk and sodomized once at sea. He then shot them in the head, tied rocks to their corpses, and coldly dropped them overboard. Number 6. The Gates of Janus. Ian Brady is half of the child-murdering duo that went down in history for the Moors murders in Manchester 1966. Together with Myra Hindley, he murdered and raped 5 children ranging in age from 5 to 17 years old. The Gates of Janus is Ian Brady's manifesto and has been described as a disturbingly self-aware and provocative addition to the true crime canon. In it, Brady takes the reader into the mind of a serial killer and explains its clockwork. He tries to convince readers that serial killers have great insight into themselves and presents a theory about the origin of the modern-day serial killer, including profiles of famous killers like Ted Bundy and John Wayne Gacy. Number 5. The Trinity of Superkids. J.D. Bauer is the pseudonym of Charles Kembo, a serial killer who, it turns out, authored a young adult novel called Quest for Water. Charles Kembo was convicted of 4 murders between 2002 and 2005. In 2003, his wife disappeared and her body was never recovered. Later that year, Kembo's business partner was found strangled and castrated in Vancouver Park. A year later, the remains of his new girlfriend were found in a hockey bag, and then his 20-year-old stepdaughter's body was found in 2005 wrapped in garbage bags and callously dumped. Charles Kembo was arrested a few days after his final murder and is still in prison today. The Trinity of Superkids' Quest for Water is Charles Kembo's 372-page young adult adventure story about 3 fun-loving teens in a waterless post-apocalyptic world. The wholesome story was published on Amazon in 2010, during the murder trial. Who said serial killers can't have other interests? Number 4. Son of Hope. David Berkowitz is an American serial killer who killed 6 people in July 1976 and August 1977. He worked only at night and preferred to target dark-haired women. Because of this, many women that summer dyed their hair blonde or cut it short to stay off his radar. During his eventual imprisonment, David found religion and became the Son of Hope. Hoping for redemption, he wrote a book with the same title, which contained his prison journals and described his rebirth into Christianity. David had briefly been involved with a Satanist cult and says he was driven to murder by the devil. He claimed to suffer hallucinations and received instructional messages from the real mastermind of his crimes, his neighbor's dog. David is unable to profit from the sales of his book, and a portion of the proceeds from each sale goes to the victims of his crimes. There has been no word on whether the dog was compensated, though. Number 3. The Making of a Serial Killer. Danny Rawling is a notorious Florida serial killer who raped and killed 5 college students in 1990. The son of a police officer, he came to Gainesville before the start of the University of Florida's fall semester and pitched a tent in the nearby woods. He then carried out several gruesome murders over 4 days. In the aftermath, students were instructed to carry baseball bats around campus and to sleep 20 to a dorm room. One of the most horrifying aspects of Danny's killing spree was the way he posed one of his victims in a sitting position and placed her severed head on a nearby bookshelf. Danny was eventually apprehended and wrote the book, The Making of a Serial Killer, from prison with his former fiancée, Sandra London. The book was published in 1996 and is filled with disturbing stories, like a graphic recounting of his Sarasota rape. Number 2. Killer Fiction. In 1973, Deputy Sheriff Gerard John Schaefer was convicted for the torture and the murder of teenagers Susan Place and Georgia Jessup. It's likely he committed other murders too, as a police search of his mother's home revealed objects belonging to missing women and more than 100 pages of writing and sketches depicting mutilations and murders. In 1990, Gerard's former high school girlfriend Sandra London, yes, the fiancée of Danny Rawling, does this woman have a type or what, published some of Gerard's fiction in a volume called Killer Fiction. However, police and prosecutors believe there was more fact than fiction in these stories, and Gerard himself even alluded to this in one prison letter. All of Gerard's fiction featured the savage torture and murder of women, clearly mirroring his own dark fantasies. They were often written from the killer's perspective, and the killer was usually a rogue cop like Gerard. If you're wondering, Sandra London went on to be a true crime writer, while Gerard was killed by a fellow inmate in 1995. The inmate ran into his cell, cut his throat, and stabbed him in the eyes. Mustn't have liked him very much. Number 1. A Question of Doubt. The notorious John Wayne Gacy killed 33 young people, mostly children. After serving a small portion of a sodomy sentence, Gacy moved to Chicago where he became a successful building contractor. He was well liked and often appeared as Pogo the Clown at children's parties and charity events. This is when he got the taste for murder. Gacy lured his victims, usually runaways and drifters, to his home by posing as a police officer or inviting them in for drinks. Once inside, he would handcuff them under the guise of performing a magic trick, and then rape and torture them. He buried his victims' bodies in the crawlspace beneath his house, but was such a prolific killer that the space eventually filled, and he had to start dumping bodies in a nearby river. Gacy was eventually caught when an investigating officer noticed the smell coming from the crawlspace. He was convicted in 1980 and given a lethal injection in 1994. During his incarceration, Gacy co-authored a book called A Question of Doubt, in which he blamed other parties for the corpses under his house. That demonic dog was probably involved too. He claimed the police and media had set him up, but the evidence against him was overwhelming. 500 copies of the book were published in 1993, but it has now fallen out of print. However, there was a play based on the book called 33 A Question of Doubt, which you can see if you like supporting mass murderers. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Did you enjoy the video? That's fantastic. Did you know we still have a gaming channel, Collaborative? It's for Planet Dolan. Come look at us as we play some video games.
Like animation? Have some questions about life and the universe you need answered? Come check out Super Planet Dolan. Danger Dolan and I will answer your life questions. Links are down below.